The laughter came first, sharp, careless, and cruel. A man in tattered clothes stood outside the Regency Grand Hotel, shivering under the awning as rain hissed on the pavement. His jeans were torn, his shoes soaked through. To everyone else, he was just another nobody begging near the glass doors. But under the grime, there was calm in his eyes, a stillness, like someone used to watching storms, not running from them. "Move it along, old man," the valet snapped. He didn't move. He just smiled faintly, fingers brushing the brim of a worn navy cap. Inside, a manager scoffed. People like him shouldn't even breathe near this place. They didn't know. The man they were mocking wasn't homeless. He owned the hotel. And tonight, he'd come to remember why he built it. The lobby of the Regency Grand gleamed like a mirror, marble floors, gold-trimmed counters, a chandelier that dripped light like champagne. But beneath the gloss, there was a chill. It was the kind of place where smiles were a customer policy, not a sign of kindness. Outside, the night was soaked in city noise. Cars hissed through puddles. A bus wheezed to a stop. The homeless man, or what they thought was one, stood quietly near the revolving door. His name was Ethan Cole, 35 years old. A CEO who'd built an empire on the idea that dignity should never depend on a suit. Tonight, he dressed in worn denim, a faded polo, and the same cap he'd worn before he could afford coffee that didn't come in paper cups. The valet pointed at him with his chin. "Sir, you're making guests uncomfortable." Ethan's voice was low. "Am I?" A group of businessmen in suits chuckled, brushing past. One muttered, "Every corner's got one." Another laughed louder, tossing a crumpled bill on the ground. Ethan didn't pick it up. He just looked at it, the way a man looks at an insult dressed as charity. Inside, the lobby manager, Rick Donovan, watched the scene through the glass doors. He was tall, sharp-featured, and allergic to humility. He turned to the front desk clerk. "If he steps inside, call security." The clerk hesitated. "But he's not." "Do I pay you to think, Mia?" The girl shrank back, nodding. Rick strutted outside, umbrella half open, cologne cutting through the rain. "Sir," he said, with that weaponized politeness people use when they want you to disappear, "you can't stand here." Ethan met his eyes. Calm, steady. "Why not?" "Because this is private property." Ethan looked up at the building's glowing name. "Private? Oh." His voice was thoughtful, not angry. Funny thing about ownership. Rick sneered. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before Ethan could answer, a door swung open. An older woman in a press uniform stepped out, Gloria, head of housekeeping. Late 50s. Hands cracked from bleach. Eyes that had seen too much indifference. "Rick," she said quietly, "let him be. He's not hurting anyone." Rick shot her a look. "You want to vouch for him, Gloria? Go ahead. Feed him. Hire him. Marry him." She flinched but didn't look away. "We've all been down before, Rick. You just forget faster than most." The rain thickened. Ethan stayed silent. From the lobby, a young bellboy, maybe 17, peeked out. He watched as Rick barked orders, as guests smirked and walked past a shivering man with a steady gaze. He whispered to Gloria, "Why is he just standing there?" Gloria's answer was soft. Maybe he's waiting to see who'll look at him like a person. No one did. A car honked. Rick turned back to Ethan, irritated. "Last warning. Old man, move it before I call security." Ethan nodded slowly, eyes on the marble steps. "All right," he murmured. Then, almost under his breath, "Let's see who really owns this place." He turned toward the door. Rick blocked him, dripping umbrella pointed like a weapon. "You're not going in." Ethan smiled faintly. "We'll see." Gloria's voice trembled. "Rick, don't." Too late. Rick shoved the door open and yelled into the lobby, "Security, I've got a trespasser." Every head turned. The marble room stilled. And for a heartbeat, just one, Ethan looked up at the chandelier that bore his initials in gold, tiny and discreet, EC. No one noticed. Not yet. The security guard arrived before the truth did. A thick man in a black jacket, radio clipped to his belt. His name tag read Vince, though everyone just called him security. Rick pointed with performative outrage. That's him. Been loitering for 20 minutes. Making guests nervous. Ethan didn't argue. He didn't move. Vince adjusted his gloves. Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. The words had sounded wrong. More like a problem. Gloria stepped forward again. Voice low. Rick, it's freezing. Let him warm up for a bit. He's not causing. Rick cut her off. You don't get paid to feel sorry, Gloria. You get paid to clean. Her mouth tightened, the kind of hurt that comes from remembering who signs your paycheck. The young bellboy watched from behind the counter. His hands fidgeted near a pile of luggage tags. He whispered to the clerk, "He doesn't even look dangerous." The clerk shook her head. "That doesn't matter here." The rain outside thickened into silver sheets, drumming against the glass. Ethan's shoulders were damp, but his voice stayed steady. "You ever wonder," he said quietly, "what makes a man dangerous?" Rick rolled his eyes. "Save your philosophy, Professor. You got 10 seconds. Vince moved closer. "Come on, old man. Don't make this hard." Ethan looked up, meeting Vince's eyes. Something about that calm unnerved the guard. He hesitated just for a second. "I'm not here to make trouble," Ethan said softly. "I'm here to remember something." Rick smirked. "Yeah? Remember to shower." A few guests laughed from the lobby couches. The sound was sharp, ugly, and human. Ethan turned his gaze toward them, not with anger, but with something colder, disappointment. And suddenly, the laughter died down, because there was something about him. The posture, the certainty in the stillness. You don't fake that. You earn it, in boardrooms, not on sidewalks. But Rick didn't see it. Or maybe he refused to. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Listen, old man, you don't belong here. You think anyone's gonna stand up for you? Look around." Ethan did. No one moved. The bellboy's eyes dropped. The clerk turned away. Even Gloria, who had tried, now stood helpless, folding her hands. The silence was worse than the insults. Narration broke it. No one helped. No one even looked up, because kindness had become too expensive. Rick smiled, satisfied. "That's what I thought. Now get off my property before..." Before he could finish, Ethan reached into his pocket. Vince tensed. "Hey, easy." Ethan pulled out an old, tarnished keychain. A single bronze key dangled from it, engraved with a number, 01. Rick laughed. "You still have a key from when you stayed here? Cute." Ethan's thumb brushed the metal. "No," he said softly, "from when I opened it." Rick blinked. "What?" But Ethan didn't elaborate. He slipped the key back into his pocket. "Funny thing," he said, almost to himself. You build a place to give people work, and one day you realize you built walls instead. Rick frowned. "You're talking nonsense again." "Maybe." Ethan's eyes met Gloria's. "Or maybe I'm remembering faces. The ones who were kind when it mattered." Gloria's breath caught. Something flickered. Recognition? No, that couldn't be. Ethan Cole had never met her before. Had he? Rick waved at Vince. "Enough. Get him out." Vince hesitated again. His not resisting. "Rick, maybe just let him." "I said get him out." And with that, Vince reached for Ethan's arm. But Ethan didn't move. He just stood there, still as the rain. "I'll leave," he said calmly, after one question. Rick sighed. "Make it quick." Ethan's voice dropped. "How long have you been managing this place?" Rick straightened. 3 years. "Why?" Ethan nodded slowly. 3 years, and you still don't know whose name is carved into the chandelier above your head. Rick frowned, glancing up, confused. "What are you?" He stopped. There, barely visible in the gold patterning, were 2 engraved letters, EC. The initials shimmered faintly in the light. "Coincidence," Rick muttered. "That could stand for anything." Ethan smiled faintly. "You're right. Could stand for anything." Then he turned to Gloria. "You still work double shifts?" She looked startled. How do you? I remember faces that build the foundation, Ethan said, not the ones who sit on it. Rick blinked, confused, frustrated, a little unnerved. Who are you? Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he looked around the lobby, at the tired bellboy, the clerk afraid to speak, Gloria clutching her hands, and the guests pretending to be invisible. Every empire forgets who swept the floors, he said softly, until the lights go out. And with that, he turned to leave. Vince stepped back, uncertain. Rick shouted after him, "Yeah, that's right. Walk away." But as Ethan reached the glass doors, he paused. Rain streaked down his reflection, two faces merging, the billionaire and the man everyone had mocked. He took out his phone, typed one word, "Proceed." Then he stepped into the storm. Inside, silence spread like smoke. Rick frowned. What the hell does that mean? Vince checked the window. Boss, you might want to see this." Headlights appeared through the rain. 3 black cars pulling up to the entrance. Men in suits stepped out, umbrellas snapping open. The gold crest on their lapels gleamed under the streetlight. Cole Holdings. Rick's breath hitched. "Wait! Cole, as in..." Gloria's eyes widened. The bellboy whispered, "That's a company that owns." The word stuck in his throat, because they all realized it at once. The man they'd just thrown out into the rain wasn't homeless. He was Ethan Cole, owner of Regency Grand, and he wasn't gone. He was watching from across the street, phone still glowing in his hand. The doors blew open before anyone spoke. Rain gusted in, carried by the wind and by men in dark suits who didn't belong to the lobby world of smiles and small talk. They moved with quiet precision, the kind that comes from command, not compliance. At their center stood a woman in her 40s, crisp suit, tablet in hand, expression neutral. Ms. Carter is executive director of Cole Holdings. She didn't need to raise her voice. "Where's Mr. Cole?" Rick blinked, frozen behind the front desk. Who did you say?" "Ethan Cole," she said evenly. "The owner." Her tone dropped, sharp as a gavel. "He was here 10 minutes ago." The young bellboy's mouth fell open. "You mean the homeless guy?" Every whisper in the lobby turned into silence. Ms. Carter's eyes flicked toward him. "The what?" Rick stepped in quickly, words stumbling over themselves. A misunderstanding. Some drifter came in, wouldn't leave. Security was handling it. By handling, Ms. Carter said, "Do you mean humiliating?" Vince, the security guard, lowered his head. We didn't know who he was." "Then maybe," she said softly, "you should have treated him like he could have been anyone." The words hung there. Outside, Ethan stood under the awning across the street, watching through the rain. His cap was soaked, but his expression remained still, neither angry nor triumphant. Just sad. Inside, the corporate team spread out like a quiet storm. One went to the manager's computer, another took photos of the lobby, and another quietly spoke with Gloria. Rick tried to regain his footing. "Look, this is insane. If that really was Mr. Cole..." "It was," Ms. Carter said. "He swallowed. Then, why would he?" "Because he built this place to see people," she interrupted. "And you taught everyone here to ignore them." Gloria stood frozen, clutching a damp towel. The bellboy looked pale. Gloria whispered. "I tried to stop him." "Rick, he..." Carter turned to her. "I know who you are. Gloria, you've worked here for 19 years. Mr. Cole asked about you by name." The older woman's lips trembled. He remembered me. "He remembers everyone who built something honest," Carter said softly. Rick stepped forward, voice rising with fear. "You can't just come in here accusing me." Carter didn't respond. She simply held up her tablet. On the screen, live security footage replayed the last 20 minutes. Rick's voice echoed through the speakers. People like him shouldn't even breathe near this place. The playback froze on his face. The silence afterward was colder than the rain outside. Rick stammered. "That was taken out of context. I was protecting our brand." Carter's tone was even. "The brand isn't marble and chandeliers. It's decency, and you just filed for bankruptcy in that department." She turned to Vince. You're dismissed. Wait for HR. Then, to Rick, you come with me. Rick's face went pale. You're firing me? For what? For not knowing a billionaire likes to play dress-up. Carter's gaze was steel. No, for showing everyone here exactly how much humanity this place could lose before it notices. She motioned toward the doors. He's waiting for you. Outside, Ethan hadn't moved. Rain streaked down his face like silver scars. Rick hesitated before stepping out, eyes darting around for cameras. For any sign this was set up, it wasn't. Ethan turned slowly as Rick approached, trying to straighten his soaked blazer. Mr. Cole, Rick started. I didn't know. Ethan cut him off gently. You didn't need to. Rick blinked. Sir, I was just following procedure. It's hotel policy. Ethan stepped closer, voice calm but heavy with truth. Is cruelty your policy or your preference? Rick swallowed hard. I was protecting the image of your brand. My brand. Ethan's eyes hardened. You think my brand is built on shame. Rick opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Ethan's tone softened. Do you know why I came here tonight? Rick shook his head. Ethan glanced toward the neon hotel sign flickering above them. I built this place when I was 26. Slept in my car for the first 6 months. Used to shower in gas stations before interviews. I told myself, one day, I'd make a place where no one felt like less than human. He paused. The rain slowed. But tonight, he said quietly, I saw something worse than poverty. I saw pride with no purpose. Rick's voice cracked. Please, sir, don't ruin my life over one mistake. Ethan studied him. You didn't ruin your life tonight. You've been building this mistake every day you look down on someone. Rick dropped his eyes. The door opened behind them. Gloria stepped out, umbrella trembling in her hands. Mr. Cole, she said softly, I'm so sorry. We didn't know. Ethan's expression changed, from fire to warmth. You tried, he said. That's enough. Her voice broke. I was scared to speak up more. I needed the job. Ethan nodded. And yet you still did what was right. That's how light begins, even in fear. Behind them, the young bellboy appeared in the doorway, still in his soaked uniform. Sir, he said nervously, you dropped this earlier. He held up Ethan's keychain. The bronze key glinted under the rain light. Ethan smiled faintly. Thank you, son. The boy hesitated. Sir, were you really out here to test us? Ethan looked toward the lobby windows, where guests pretended not to stare. No, he said softly. I was here to remind myself what happens when you stop seeing people. Ms. Carter stepped forward from the doorway. Everything's ready, so. Ethan nodded. Good. Then he turned to Rick. Go home. Don't come back. And next time you pass someone on the street, look at them, not through them. Rick opened his mouth to speak, but Ethan was already walking back inside. The bellboy whispered to Gloria, Is he gonna shut us down? Gloria's eyes stayed on Ethan's calm silhouette. No, she said softly. He's gonna save it. Inside, Ms. Carter began giving quiet orders. Staff gathered, confused, nervous, remorseful. Ethan stood in the center of the lobby, dripping rain onto the marble floor that once gleamed with his pride. He looked around. The same place he'd built to offer comfort now reeked of hierarchy. He touched the counter, remembering the first day it opened, how he promised his late mother he'd make a place where everyone mattered. Now it was time to keep that promise again. He turned to the staff. Close the hotel for 48 hours, he said. Someone gasped. Sir, you can't. We're full. I just did, Ethan said quietly. We'll reopen when we remember why we opened in the first place. Then he faced Gloria. You've been working here the longest. Starting tomorrow, you'll lead interim staff oversight. Every complaint, every report goes to you first. Her hands flew to her mouth. Me? Sir, I'm just... Honest, Ethan said. That's what's been missing. Tears welled in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Cole. He smiled gently. No, thank you for still being kind when no one was watching. The bellboy looked down at his shoes. "Sir," he said hesitantly. "I should have said something too, when they were laughing." Ethan crouched slightly, meeting his eyes. "You will next time. That's what matters." The boy nodded. As Ethan stood again, his phone buzzed, a text from Ms. Carter's team. "Media already picking up story. Do you want us to comment?" He typed back, no statement, just actions. He slipped the phone away, glancing once more at the initials carved into the chandelier, EC. The light caught them just right this time, casting their reflection across the entire lobby floor. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt like they meant something again. The next morning, the Regency Grand Hotel woke to whispers. The marble floors were quiet. The lobby that once buzzed with polished arrogance now held its breath. No one knew what to expect. At 8 a.m., the double doors opened. A convoy of sleek black cars rolled up to the curb. Cameras clicked from across the street. Journalists, reporters, curious bystanders. And then Ethan Cole stepped out. Clean clothes this time, navy cap still on. But now his presence carried the unmistakable gravity of truth. Every head turned. Guests, staff, executives, all frozen. The homeless man who had been laughed at less than 12 hours ago was now the man everyone stood waiting for. He walked through the lobby without saying a word. No entourage, no noise, just a soft, deliberate rhythm of footsteps that had built empires. Ms. Carter followed behind him, clipboard in hand. "Everything's ready, sir," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "Let's begin." At the far end of the lobby, cameras were set up facing a podium. Reporters murmured to each other, the way people do before a verdict. Ethan took his place. Behind him, the gold chandelier gleamed, and this time, the engraved initials EC caught the morning sun. He waited until the room was silent. "Last night," he began, his voice low and deliberate, "I stood right here, and no one saw me." Every staff member froze. "I wasn't invisible," he continued. "I was inconvenient, and sometimes that's worse." He glanced toward Gloria, who stood off to the side, tears in her eyes. "Kindness," Ethan said, "isn't about recognition. It's about choice. Every person in this building made one last night." He turned to the staff, his gaze soft but unrelenting. Some chose silence. Some chose cruelty. One chose courage. Rick Donovan stood near the back, pale, jaw tight. Ethan's eyes found him. "Mr. Donovan," he said calmly, "do you know what it feels like to be humiliated for nothing more than existing?" Rick swallowed. "Sir, I was doing my job." "Your job," Ethan said quietly, "isn't to judge who deserves dignity." The room went still again. Even the cameras seemed to pause. Ms. Carter stepped forward with a folder. "Effective immediately," she said. "Mr. Donovan is relieved of his position pending investigation into staff conduct and ethical violations." Rick's voice cracked. "This is insane. You can't." Ethan held up a hand. "You will have your hearing. But before you do, I want you to look around." Rick turned, eyes sweeping across the faces of the employees who once laughed with him, and now looked away. "This hotel," Ethan said softly, "will no longer be a place where silence protects the powerful. It will be a place where compassion leads policy." He looked back at the crowd. "That starts now." He motioned to Gloria. "Ms. Ramirez," he said gently, "please step forward." She hesitated. "Sir, You spent 19 years keeping this place running," Ethan said. "From today forward, you'll oversee the new hospitality training program. Every new hire will learn from you." Her hands trembled. "Mr. Cole, I don't have the education for." "You have what this place forgot," Ethan said simply. "Heart." Applause began softly, then grew, hesitant at first, then stronger. Even the bellboy clapped through tears. Ethan turned to the crowd again. "You all saw what happened last night. Maybe you stayed quiet. Maybe you didn't. But now you know what silence costs." He paused, scanning every face. "If you choose to work here after today, you choose to see people. All people. That's the only rule that matters." A journalist raised her hand. "Mr. Cole, Why didn't you reveal yourself sooner? Why go undercover? Ethan's expression softened, a hint of tiredness behind the authority. Because, he said, money changes the way people talk to you. I needed to hear what they say when they think you have none. The reporter nodded, silent. Ethan continued, his tone quieter now. I didn't do this to punish anyone. I did it to understand how far we've drifted from empathy. He turned slightly toward the staff again. This isn't about me. It's about the world we build when we forget that worth doesn't wear labels. At that moment, Gloria stepped forward with a bellboy beside her. The boy spoke up, his voice trembling but clear. Sir, he said, last night, when you left, I wanted to stop them, but I was scared. Ethan's gaze softened. And now? I'm still scared, the boy admitted, but I'd do it anyway. Ethan nodded slowly, emotion flickering through his eyes. That's how courage starts. The press cameras clicked. The chandelier light shimmered above him, scattering reflections across the marble. Ethan took a slow breath, then said the words that would echo long after the cameras stopped rolling. You can lose everything, your money, your status, your name. But the moment you lose your humanity, you lost what no fortune can buy. The room went silent. No applause this time, just reflection. He placed his hand briefly over the podium, then stepped down. Ms. Carter followed. Gloria smiled faintly through tears. And Rick simply stood frozen, watching the man he had mocked walk away. Not angry, not vengeful, just resolved. Outside, the sky broke open. Sunlight poured through the rain clouds, washing the glass facade in gold. And for the first time in years, the Regency Grand Hotel didn't feel cold. By evening, the marble floors of the Regency Grand no longer shimmered with vanity. They echoed instead with the sound of reform. Signs were posted across the lobby, closed for reconstruction, not of walls, but of values. Inside, teams from Cole Holdings walked through hallways with clipboards and quiet purpose. They weren't checking paint or lighting. They were interviewing people. Housekeepers, cooks, bellboys, night guards. For once, voices that were usually invisible filled the air. Ethan sat in his corner office overlooking the rain-streaked city. The same office Rick used to parade through as if it were his own kingdom. Now, that office felt quieter. On his desk lay two folders, one marked termination, the other renewal. He stared at them for a moment before closing both. Ms. Carter stood by the door. Sir, the press want a statement about the layoffs. Ethan shook his head. We're not laying off. We're replacing culture. She nodded. Understood. He leaned back, eyes distant. Do you remember why I built this place, Carter? You told me once, she said softly, because you wanted to prove that luxury and humanity could share the same room. He smiled faintly. Looks like they stopped talking to each other. Downstairs, Rick Donovan sat in a conference room, waiting. The arrogance that once filled his walk was gone. He stared at his reflection in the glass table, a man stripped of title, dress in borrowed humility. The door opened. Ethan stepped in. Rick rose halfway, then sank back into the chair. Mr. Cole. Ethan sat opposite him. The air between them was sharp but calm. I didn't call you here for revenge, Ethan began. I called you here for perspective. Rick's throat tightened. Sir, I was wrong. I see that now. Ethan nodded. You were more than wrong. You were cool, but I don't think you're beyond repair. Rick blinked. You're not pressing charges. Ethan shook his head. You're already serving the sentence that matters, seeing yourself clearly. He leaned forward. But you will pay back what you took. Not from me, from the people you disrespected. Rick frowned. How? Ethan handed him a paper. The new community outreach program. You'll help run it. Free meals for the homeless. Job placement for struggling workers. For 6 months. Rick's eyes widened. You're putting me in charge of that. Ethan's tone was quiet but firm. You'll report to Gloria. You'll clean floors beside her. You'll hand out food to the people you once looked down on. Then we'll see if you've learned what money never taught you. Rick swallowed hard. Why give me that chance? Ethan's eyes softened. Because someone once gave me one. Downstairs, Gloria was organizing a meeting in the staff lounge. The bellboy helped set up folding chairs. She smiled through exhaustion. Never thought I'd see this place care more about people than Polish. The bellboy grinned. You think he'll really change things? Gloria nodded. He already has. She looked toward the entrance, where workers were putting up new signage. The hotel's new slogan read, "Luxury begins with respect." She wiped a tear discreetly. That night, Ethan walked through the quiet lobby alone. The chandelier glowed soft gold above him. He stopped at the engraved initials, EC, and touched them gently. He remembered his mother's voice, the woman who raised him when he slept in shelters, who told him, "If you ever build something beautiful, make sure it's beautiful inside too." He whispered to himself, "It's time I finally listened." 2 weeks later, the Regency Grand reopened, but it wasn't the same hotel. Guests were greeted with handshakes, not hierarchy. The bellboy, now wearing a confident smile, helped an elderly man to the elevator instead of rushing past him. In the kitchen, Gloria oversaw staff training sessions that began with one question: what does kindness look like here? Rick arrived every morning at 6 a.m., sleeves rolled up, sweeping the lobby he once ruled. Some whispered, others laughed. He didn't respond. Humility was learning to work without applause. And when he passed Gloria, she'd nod once, not out of pity, but respect. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his office with Ms. Carter, reviewing employee surveys. She looked up from her tablet. "So, the feedback is extraordinary. Morale's up. Productivity, too." Ethan smiled faintly. Turns out, when people feel seen, they work like it matters. She hesitated. Rick submitted a note with his report. He looked up. What did it say? Carter handed it over. Ethan read silently. "I used to think leadership meant power. Now I think it means patience. I'll spend the rest of my life earning back what I lost in one night." Ethan folded the paper and placed it inside the renewal folder. "Good," he murmured. "That's what redemption sounds like." Later that night, the rain returned, the kind that softened the city instead of bruising it. Ethan walked outside, standing under the same awning where it all began. A man in ragged clothes approached the entrance, nervous, drenched. The concierge hesitated. Ethan watched quietly. Then Gloria's voice came from behind the desk. "Get him a towel and some coffee." The concierge nodded and hurried off. The man looked stunned. "Thank you, miss." Gloria smiled gently. "No thanks needed. You're welcome here." Ethan's eyes glistened. He turned toward the street, rain blurring the world into silver. And for the first time, the sign above the hotel didn't just shine. It meant something. "Kindness doesn't need a reminder," Ethan said softly. "It speaks before excuses do." A month passed, and for the first time in years, the Regency Grand felt alive. Not with noise, but with purpose. Morning light spilled through clean glass. The scent of fresh bread drifted from the kitchen, replacing the sterile tang of Polish and perfume. The people inside, once divided by rank, now greeted each other by name. No more so. No more. Just people. Gloria stood at the staff bulletin board, posting a new announcement. Monthly kindness bonus, awarded for acts of quiet integrity. The bellboy, Sam, read it and smiled. "Guess you're the first one getting that." She chuckled. "Not me. You are. You're the one who spoke up when no one else did." He blinked. "I just told the truth." She put a hand on his shoulder. "That's how it always starts." In the corner of the lobby, Rick arranged boxes of supplies for the outreach drive, jackets, blankets, meals. He worked quietly, without the need for recognition. When Gloria approached, he looked up nervously. "You're still here," she said softly. He nodded. "Ethan told me redemption's not a place you visit. It's work you do every day." Gloria smiled. "Then you're right where you belong." At noon, the front doors opened to a small crowd, community members, volunteers, and local press. Ethan Cole stood in the center. No chute, no podium. Just a man in jeans and a cap, hands folded, eyes bright with humility. "Today," he began. "This hotel reopens not as a monument to wealth, but to worth." He paused, letting the silence breathe. "We're not perfect. We've failed before. But from this point forward, no one who walks through these doors will ever be treated as invisible again." Applause rippled softly. It wasn't the roar of success. It was a murmur of belief. That night, Ethan walked the halls quietly. Each open door revealed something beautiful. Laughter, warmth, second chances. He stopped outside Gloria's break room, listening as she read Sam's essay aloud. Sometimes, the richest man is the one who remembers how to listen. Ethan smiled. For the first time in a long while, he felt at home. Rain whispered again outside the Regency Grand. This time, it didn't sound lonely. It sounded cleansing. Ethan Cole stood beneath the awning, coffee in hand, watching the city breathe. The same sidewalk where laughter once cut him open now held quiet respect. The hotel doors slid open behind him. Gloria stepped out, holding an umbrella. "You should come inside," she said softly. "It's getting cold." He smiled. "I used to think the cold was my punishment. Turns out, it was just life reminding me where I came from." They stood there a moment, side by side, the billionaire who once hid as a homeless man, and the woman who refused to stop being kind. Inside, the lobby glowed with gentle light. A group of workers laughed over coffee. Sam was showing Rick how to balance trays, both grinning. It was small, ordinary, perfect. Ethan looked down at his old keyring, the one he had pulled from his pocket the day everything changed. He ran his thumb across the worn metal. "Funny thing about keys," he murmured. "They don't just open doors. Sometimes they open people." Gloria glanced at him. "And what about you? What did this open for you?" He looked toward the rain. "Grace." He turned back, his voice quiet but resolute. "Kindness isn't weakness. It's the strength to see someone's worth before the world tells you not to." He slipped the keys into his pocket, nodded once, and walked back through the hotel's golden doors. The camera lingers on the sign above the entrance. Luxury begins with respect. And the narration fades with one final question. When you see wrong, do you stay quiet? Or do you stand up? The end.